So Madan Mohan Govinda Prabhu asked me to speak on what kind of lifestyle we should lead in order to help our Krishna consciousness. Yes? Selecting a kind of life. How should one live one's life so that one can become Krishna conscious? Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Kadati Svapadadikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sarkajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijala Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Veshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Some of you try to find some place to sit. Standing committees it'll be inconvenient for all of you to keep standing for a long time. There is some more place here in case one of you can come here, one or two of you, there's at least one person can come here. Hare Krishna. This afternoon I was reflecting on the topic, selecting a lifestyle that will help us become Krishna conscious. And I thought back on a list I had made some years ago. That list was made specifically for householders, and there were guidelines, 20 guidelines for householders. So when we talk of a lifestyle, it encompasses every part of our life. So I thought, why not discuss briefly those 20 points? What do you think? It's good? So whether you are a householder, planning to be a householder, wishing you had never been a householder, or whatever it may be, this list will perhaps be helpful and useful. So what we'll do is, I'll read out the 20 points. We'll just read it one by one. So I just got a printout this afternoon. And it's something I usually give when people get married. The first thing I go and give them. So although many of you are already long married or so, but doesn't matter. It's a useful list. Even if you're not planning to get married, still it's okay, it's good to know, because many points are common. Because ultimately everyone has to be Krishna conscious, whatever we are, wherever we are. We may be brahmacharis, sannyasis, grihasthas, men, women, children, old people, everyone. Our goal of life is the same. So these are 20 guidelines, yes? The first, you see, before we speak of a lifestyle, there has to be some kind of consciousness or a thought process or an attitude that goes behind that lifestyle. When someone lives in a certain way, one can understand what the underlying consciousness or attitude of that person is. Yes? So the lifestyle reflects the externals, and the consciousness or the attitudes and the values reflect the internals. So before we talk of lifestyles, we have to speak of something that's internal. So this addresses that. What should be your attitude towards what you have, what's around you in your house, like your family, your money, your car, etc. So point number 1, remember that your house, money, family, etc. are all Krishna's property, and that all these have to be engaged in his service. He has very kindly given you all these out of his mercy, and he may take them away as he pleases. So be grateful for what you have and engage these gifts in his service with devotion and detachment. So this is a very, very important principle, to remember that nothing is mine. The other day at one program I was speaking about this concept of limited secondary ownership. The real owner is Krishna. Everyone else is a limited owner and a secondary owner. Even as secondary owners, we have very limited ownership over things. Krishna, this world existed before we came in, and is going to exist after we leave. And even before the creation existed, Krishna existed. Krishna was the one who set this creation in motion, who created the world, who will destroy it, who has given us facilities like this body, and he has given us a whole world in which we are living. So ultimately, if we acknowledge that Krishna is the supreme proprietor, he owns everything, and yes, even our money. He owns our money as well. Everything is his property. So this consciousness is very important. I was giving the example the other day of a company employee who is given some facilities by the company, like a cabin, some furniture and some other perquisites. But those are supposed to be used in the service of the company. And the employee should understand this is actually the property of the company. But it has been given to me as my quota because I am a manager or a director or whatever. So I have the right to utilize these things. Not that any other employee can just walk in and push me out of there, no. So I have a right, but it's a very limited right. And it's a secondary right. It's not a primary right. It can be taken away at any time by the company. So similarly, this house, the money, the family, everything belongs to Krishna. So we are limited secondary owners. And just as the person in the company has to use everything for Krishna's service or the company's service, so also we must use everything we have in the service of Krishna, who is the owner of everything. Yes? And also another aspect of this is to remember that just as the company, especially in the Western countries, the modern world now, hire and fire, they can fire you anytime from the company. Yes? So similarly, at any time, our things may be taken away. Our body may be taken away at any moment. Death can come at any time. There could be an earthquake or something else, some other calamity could happen and we could lose everything. Sometimes entire families are killed in car accidents or aeroplane crashes or something. So we should always remember that life is very uncertain, and we are all at the mercy of Krishna. Whatever he has given us are his gifts. So we must appreciate them and not complain about them, whether it's less or more. Even if we have something lesser than somebody else, we shouldn't worry. We should be grateful for whatever we have, because we should know it is a gift of love given by Krishna. So we should use them in the service of Lord Krishna with devotion and detachment. The more you're attached to what you have, the more you will experience pain. If you buy a new house, or let's say a new car, and just as you bought it and you traveled out, someone comes and knocks into it, what do you feel? You feel some intense pain. But if somebody else's car is knocked, you don't feel that pain. Why not? Because you don't have the attachment to the other car. You have the attachment to your car because it's yours. So the attachment brings pain. So if we live in our house with our family, with our money and everything, in a spirit of devotion plus detachment, then we will not experience suffering to the degree that others who are attached will experience. So that's point number 1. Point number 2. Keep the holy name, Krishna Katha, and the temple or the home deities in the center of your life. Attend devotional programs in the temple and at other devotee gatherings on a regular basis, like this one, for example. Especially hearing discourses and classes live and participating in Sankirtan is important. So these are what we would call the primary devotional activities. So any devotee has to do these. No one can be called a devotee if he or she does not engage in these activities. Primary devotional service is chanting the names of Krishna, hearing about him, yes, associating with his devotees. So without doing these things, we cannot be called a devotee. So doing these limbs of devotional service are what makes us devotees. So please remember, the external trappings of a devotee or the symbols like wearing neck beads of tulsi, having a tilak, and maybe carrying a bead bag, etc. is one thing, but actually engaging in these things, that's very important. So I remember one time, I'd like to narrate this, that one devotee was complaining that another devotee was going to a cinema, movie. Devotees aren't supposed to watch materialistic movies, yes? So then that devotee said, I asked this other devotee, why did you go there? He said, I went with other devotees. It was association of devotees. Yes? So association of devotees doesn't mean only physical association. Doesn't mean that you just physically, as you say in England or in America, you hang out with devotees. No. It means you actually engage in devotional activities. Only then is that Sangha or that company called Sat Sangha. Sat means truth. That which facilitates the pursuit of truth. So if we go to the association of devotees, but the activities we engage in that company are not devotional, then despite the fact that the others are supposed to be devotees, then that association is not considered satsang. It is the opposite, asatsang. So when we come to the association of devotees, we must hear, chant, remember Krishna, serve Krishna in various ways. Keeping in mind the fundamental primary devotional activities in our life. We should never slacken on these things, whatever may happen in our life. One time one of our sannyasis gave a very nice example for this. He said, imagine the most difficult thing that can happen to you in your life. Something that you dread. Perhaps you've already experienced it, or perhaps you can just imagine a situation like that, where things are as bad as they can ever be. Enormous difficulty in your life. So much pain and misery. At such a time, just remember that Krishna is playing the flute, he is still in Vrindavan, he is still grazing the cows, he is still with the gopis of Vrindavan. So when you are going through the turbulent times of your life, the ups and downs of life, and especially the downs, and also the ups, mind you, always we should keep our mind fixed on the eternal reality. These temporary situations of life, they will come and they will go. Although it is very hard to sail through a difficult situation in life, but what will help us enormously is if we keep this consciousness. If we are constantly hearing and chanting about Krishna, associating with devotees, then we will be able to tide over the difficult periods of life, and we will be able to focus our consciousness on Krishna, the eternal reality, and we will not be so disturbed by the temporary ups and downs of life. So keep focus on the basics of Krishna consciousness. Many times we get so caught up with our problems and with our issues and our life that we forget the basics. So remember the basics. Hear and chant about Krishna. Associate with devotees. Always find time to do that, whatever may happen. This is very, very important part of your lifestyle as devotees. We should never neglect that. The third point, keep your sadhana strong, especially your japa. Please remember that the best chanting you can do is early in the morning. So avoid unnecessary late nights. It is best to retire early at night so you can rise early in the morning and be fresh for your sadhana. Your japa is the most important activity of the day. Try to chant clearly and hear attentively. Be in a prayerful mood. So please repeat this one sentence after me. Our japa is the most important activity of the day. So we should remember this one thing. And when you chant well, everything else goes well. If you do this one thing right, everything else will be all right. If you don't do this one thing right, nothing will be in place. Everything will be helter-skelter, and your mind will also be all over the place. So if you want to be in control of your mind and calm and composed, even in the ups and downs of life, chant your rounds nicely. And how should you chant nicely? Pronounce the words clearly, hear attentively, and chant in a prayerful mood. Why do I say that you must pronounce the words clearly? Because unless you do that, you can't hear carefully. You can't hear unless you pronounce carefully also. There are many occasions where we see devotees, they don't actually chant the Mahamantra. They swallow some words, or they add an extra Hare or an extra Ram, or they change it in some way unknowingly. For example, some people, they say Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Ram, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. And because they're not vigilant about it, they're not careful about it, so it becomes a habit. Unconsciously, they chant the wrong mantra with some words deleted or added or pronounced wrongly, and it continues for years. I remember one devotee who was chanting something like this, and when other devotees told him, he didn't believe it. He said, "No, it can't be. I've been chanting so many years. How can you tell me I'm chanting wrongly? I'm doing the right thing." So then, what they did was, this was a brahmachari. So they put a tape recorder behind him. This was in the early days. And then they played his recording to him, and then he realized that he wasn't chanting the Mahamantra. He was, adding a few Hares and Ramas and Krishnas, and it was going on. It happens more commonly than you think. So the most important part of our lifestyle is to chant japa well. And in order to do that, it's best to chant early in the morning. And also, in order to rise early in the morning, you must sleep early at night. Sometimes devotee asks, please give me some tips on lifestyle and scheduling. I say there's one tip if I can give you, that is sleep early. So when it comes to lifestyle, this is the one practical tip that I can share. Of course, sometimes I'm not able to follow it myself because we go for programs and things like that. But as far as possible, we should try to sleep early. And early means what? 11? 10? What? What time? What is early?
11.
It's very relative, isn't it? But early means like 9 o'clock. 9:30. Okay, 9:30. 9:30. All right, 9:45. But no later than that. Let's strike a deal, okay? 9:45. The reason for sleeping early is that you can wake up early and still be fresh. If you sleep late and try to wake up early, you might be able to do it, but you'll be sleepy and dozy in the japa. You'll fall off to sleep when you're chanting. So better to sleep early, get enough rest, wake up fresh, take your bath, sit down nicely, chant well. And if you have family members who can chant with you, it's even better. Okay? Fourth, read Srila Prabhupada's books regularly and seriously. This will strengthen faith, conviction and understanding and help in keeping proper spiritual focus in your day-to-day life. Remember, Guru, Sadhu and Shastra will show us our proper direction in life. So reading Prabhupada's books is also a very, very important aspect of the lifestyle of devotees. We must read this transcendental literature on a regular basis. Srila Prabhupada very much emphasized this. There were occasions when he said we must read 2 hours every day. Sometimes he said at least 1 hour every day. Even if that is too much, at least something. Because yes, everyone is busy, you have a job, you have to manage so many things, you have your household responsibilities, etc. Studies maybe if you're a student. But at least something every day, make it a habit to read. You all know Vaisheshika Prabhu, one of the very dynamic and inspiring devotees in our movement. He gives a lot of emphasis on distributing books and also on reading books. And he's made a program, he calls it CHAD. CHAD is chapter a day. Read a chapter a day. Read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or whatever. Read 1 chapter every day. So it's a practice. If you do that, you will see that you become so Krishna conscious. Make it part of your lifestyle. Make it part of your schedule, your daily routine. Soon it will become a good habit. One time I met one devotee and he told me, I'm an addict. So I got my heart took a somersault. So I was wondering what kind of addiction is he going to talk about. He says, I can't sleep until I've read Bhagavatam. I'm a Bhagavatam addict. I said, all glories to that. Yes. So we all want to be this kind of addict. Where we cannot live until we've got our daily dose of Bhagavatam. Other forms of addictions have, you can't sleep without getting alcohol, or you can't sleep without smoking a cigarette, or your tea or coffee. Tea is so difficult. There are some people who get withdrawal symptoms with tea. Yes, it happens. I know of some devotees who are not able to tolerate the withdrawal of tea. It becomes such a habit. But let us cultivate this one good habit. and make it part of our daily lifestyle and routine. We'll read something every day. Number 5. All the members of the family, young and old, should gather together at home at least once every day to have arati, kirtan and some discussion and reading from the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada mentions this in his purports. A family that prays together stays together. So every home must be a temple. Whether you're living alone at home, whether you're just 2 of you living, whether you have other members of the family living, there are elders, there are children, whatever be your situation, have some worship going on every day in your house. And all the members of the family, as far as is possible, and as far as everyone is willing to cooperate, should participate in this arati, kirtan, a little reading from the scripture, offering of bhoga to the Lord, the deities, and then everyone taking prasadam together. Srila Prabhupada mentions this many times. So this is what a real lifestyle should be. Of course, if you're living close to a temple, like our Radha Landaneshwar temple or Radha Gokulananda temple, then certainly you can go there whenever you can, once or twice a week or maybe more. But if you can't go, then do this program at home. You can do it a little later perhaps. Maybe you can't do it at 4:30 in the morning, the Mangala Arati. Do it later. In some cases, the morning time is rush hour because everyone has to go. So all right, do it. You do it privately alone in the morning and let everyone come together at night or in the evening and do it together. 6. Engage yourself in some seva regularly. It is good to take some responsibility, small or big, according to one's situation. Serve with humility, enthusiasm, sincerity and eagerness, without seeking any gross or subtle reward from the service. Do not seek or be attached to position or prestige that may be associated with any service. So this one aspect of your lifestyle is very important. It's seva. You see, seva is something we should all cherish as our precious wealth. I'll retell again one of my favorite stories. You know the famous Jagannath temple of Orissa. And they had a king, a long tradition of kings. But of course, since India became a republic, then the kingly titles were no longer there. Even after independence, it continued for some time till the mid-60s and then it was scrapped. So now the kings were no longer entitled to be called Maharajas and so on. They were just common citizens with no special privileges. So, but anyway, they're still respected, especially the king of Puri, because he's such a gentleman and such a wonderful devotee of the Lord. Very learned as well. So one time he had come to Vrindavan and I happened to be there and we hosted him nicely, gave him prasadam. He wanted some books, we gave him those books and then we were chatting. And then he was speaking about the political situation in India. And he said, you know, in the 1960s, everything we had was taken away by the government. Our title was taken away. The privy purses, we were getting special, very generous salaries every year from the government. That was taken away. Our excess land was taken away. And many treasures we had were taken away. We lost everything. But then he said, there's one thing the government could not take away from me. And I was wondering, what could that be? Maybe he's talking about some diamond or some, crown or something like that, which somehow or the other escaped the attention of the government. He said, no, they could not take away my seva to Lord Jagannath. Viva. Because traditionally, you see, it is the king of Puri who would come and sweep the street in front of the deities of Jagannath on the Rath. Only then the Ratha would start, the chariot would start. The Rath Yatra would not begin. He is considered the chief servant of Lord Jagannath. in Puri. So this was such a wonderful thing. We all applauded and said, how nice, how wonderful. So he said, this is my treasure, this is my real treasure that they could not take away from me, my service to Lord Jagannath. So we should also consider an opportunity to serve the Lord as our treasure. It can be a small service. Let's say you're spreading out the mats here, or you're arranging some chairs, or you're cooking some prasadam, you're distributing prasadam, or you're doing some other very small service even. Please remember, it's something very precious. What to speak of doing more elaborate services? What to speak of taking more responsibility for Krishna? The more responsibility and anxiety you're willing to take for Krishna, the more pleased Krishna is. Srila Prabhupada said, I have so many headaches. The yogis in the Himalayas don't have any headaches. But I have headaches because I'm running this whole worldwide mission. We are supposed to give Krishna consciousness to everyone, so there's so many problems every day that come up. So a devotee's life is not necessarily a peaceful life, but it is a joyful life. It is a life of meaning and purpose. Sometimes people ask, how can one get rid of stress? Don't get rid of stress. Just take on the stress for the right purpose. Take on the stress for Krishna's service. In any case, by the way this world is arranged, you will be under stress. Always. Something or the other, someone or the other will come along and irritate you, annoy you. You may be driving the car and someone comes along, intercepts your path or does something. Yes? So this world has been designed to annoy us, to create impediments for us. So stress is going to come anyway. So by living a devotional lifestyle, unnecessary causes of stress are avoided. But we are not simply about living a stress-free life. We are about living a meaningful, purposeful, blissful life. So take on some responsibilities that you can. Don't push yourself, of course, to a degree where you're not able to digest what you eat. But take on these responsibilities. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, my dear Lord, the anxieties I endure in your service are my ecstasies. Now, in the course of taking up this service, we must remember that we should leave our ego behind. No place for ego when we do our seva. When we are doing seva for Lord Krishna, we are servants, not just of the Lord, but also of His devotees. So when we do devotional service, we should be willing to do any type of service, whether it's the most menial and simple kind of service. We may be very big people in the outside world, but like the king of Puri, we should be willing to sweep the floor if that's what's necessary for the service of the Lord. There is no place for worldly considerations of worldly prestige and position and name and fame, etc. in devotional service. So therefore one has to be humble when we are doing service. One has to be eager. One has to be attentive to the service one is doing. One has to be enthusiastic, responsible in whatever service one does, small or big. And one should not seek a service because it will give us some prestige or give us some position or give us some name and fame, etc. If a particular service is required to be done, we are instructed to do a service, and that happens to be a high-profile service, if that's what we are required to do, so be it. But we should do that in a spirit of devotion and detachment, not seeking gross or subtle rewards, material rewards from it. As Krishna tells the gopis, that he is so pleased with their service and he is so indebted to them, he says, I have nothing to repay you with. So let your very service itself be the reward. Yes, this is very important. So the seva we do itself is our reward. Don't seek any other reward from it, not even happiness. But the point is, automatically you will be happy. That is the nature of devotional service. But sometimes if there is some anxiety and no happiness, don't worry about it. So long as we are pleasing Krishna, that is what is important. So take on some little service, or little or more, as much as you can. Point number 7. Associate with devotees as much as possible. Live together in the society of devotees with a feeling of friendship towards other devotees and in a mood of service to them. Ensure that this friendship is not spoilt by ego, envy, self-interest, insensitivity, or negligence. Keep Krishna in the center of these relationships. So, inasmuch as it is important for us to associate with devotees, it is equally important for us to know in what consciousness we have to associate with devotees. As I mentioned earlier, it is not simply the physical association that is important. It is the kind of activities we do that is important. It is a mentality with which we associate with devotees that is important. So the activity that we do, yes, as I mentioned earlier, we hear and chant about Krishna, we serve Krishna, etc. And we also serve the devotees. So in the association of devotees, we should always be in the spirit of Das. Das being the servant, or Dasi if you are a lady. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us, that we are Gopi Bhartuho Padakamalyor Das Dasanu Dasaha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the master of the gopis, Krishna. Krishna is more pleased when we serve his devotees than he is when we serve him directly. So if we become sincere servants of the devotees and give up our sense of ego and prestige, whether we are junior devotees, senior devotees, doesn't matter. We should be in a spirit of service towards other devotees. And we should be always willing to give respect to everyone. And we should ensure that we should live in a spirit of friendship. Friendship many times gets spoilt by some of the negative emotions or things that I mentioned here: ego, envy, or self-interest, insensitivity, negligence. So we should be careful, because our devotee friendships are very important for us. Because we will not like to go to a place where we don't like the people. If we are friendly with people, we like to be with them, we like to go there. And that is our incentive to hear and chant more, because we like to be in the company of such people. So then naturally we hear and chant more, and it adds as a great boost to our spiritual progress. And also, if we let all these negativities come in between the relationships amongst devotees, then we run the risk of displeasing Krishna, displeasing the devotees, etc. Then number 8. Inasmuch as it is important to associate with devotees, it is equally important to avoid the association of non-devotees as much as possible. Where such association is not avoidable, for example at work, perform your duty well and be socially pleasant. But be careful to not let their non-devotional consciousness rub off on you. Do not join them and take pleasure in the things that they take pleasure in. Like, for example, mundane gossip, movies, and other such mundane activities, and of course in the violation of the 4 regulative principles. Set a good example as a devotee and speak and act in a way that will make them feel positive about Krishna consciousness. So for most of us, we have to interact a fair bit with non-devotees. So if we just say, don't associate with non-devotees, no, that's not possible for us. We have to associate. Some of you are going to work. Some of you, even you go to the market, even if you're not working, you go to the market, you have to come across people of all types. But the main point is, we should do it as less as is required. Number two, we should be very courteous, pleasant, nice, gentle with everybody. But yet, we should not let their consciousness rub off on us. There's a little story Srila Prabhupada said at one time. How many of you know the story of the monkey and the crocodile? You know that? You want to say the story? Who knows the story? Anyone here? Okay. Yes, okay, you can say the story. You have another mic? This is a mic? Okay. Or maybe they'll hear you. You can say it loud. In brief, you can tell us the story.
हेलो प्रभु जी, जय श्री कृष्ण।
जय श्री कृष्ण।
एक मंकी बंदर और एक मगरमच्छ फ्रेंड थे, दोनों दोस्त थे। तो बंदर अपने पेड़ पर चढ़ के और वो फल ले आता, रोज बेर तोड़ लेता, कभी कोई फल कभी कोई फल लेकर आता है। और वो मगरमच्छ जल में रहता था, तो वो पानी पीने उधर आता था, तो वो बेर उसको लेकर देता था अपने फ्रेंड को, आपस में शेयर करते थे। तो कहता, यार ये बेर तो इतने मीठे हैं कि मेरी पत्नी को बड़े अच्छे लगे। उसने अपनी पत्नी को भी दे दिया, बड़े बच्चे अच्छे लगे। तो बंदर ने कि कल और लेके आना। फिर दूसरे दिन भी दिए, तीसरे दिन वो बोली, जब ये बेर इतने मीठे हैं तो उसका कलेजा कितना मीठा होगा, हार्ट। तो वो कलेजा, यार मेरी पत्नी ने मेरे से एक रिक्वेस्ट करी है कि अपना कलेजा निकाल के मुझे दे दे। तो बंदर ने कहा कि यार मैं पेड़ पर छोड़ दिया है अपना कलेजा, अभी जाता हूँ पेड़ पर से अपना कलेजा लेके आता हूँ। तो बंदर ने मगरमच्छ से अपनी जान बचाई और उसने विश्वासघात किया दोस्ती का। मगरमच्छ और बंदर ने विश्वासघात किया मगरमच्छ ने कि वो पानी की तरफ नहीं उसको खींचता, वो पानी पीने जाता था।
Okay, very nice.
ऐसे
Okay, so I will translate it for you. Once upon a time, there lived on the bank of a lake a crocodile and a monkey, and they knew each other. So the crocodile used to get some berries from the monkey and used to take them also to his wife, who was living within that lake. So one day the crocodile said, "Come, let me take you for a ride in the lake." So the monkey got on top of the crocodile, and the crocodile started swimming into the water. And as they went into the water, the crocodile started slowly going down, 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 down into the water. And the monkey said, "Where are you going? What's happening? You're going down into the water. I can't swim." "Yes, I'm taking you down to my wife because she likes. I'm going to give her a feast. She wants to eat your heart. That's delicious, good meat for her." So the monkey started laughing. He was quick-witted. So the crocodile said, "You're laughing in the face of impending death?" He said, No, I wish you had told me this before." So what do you mean? I left my heart on the tree. So if you take me back, I'll go on the tree, bring my heart, and then give it to you. So the crocodile, being a crocodile, agreed. And went back, the monkey jumped up onto the tree And then he went up on the tree, and what did he do to the crocodile? He said, this. So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story, Prabhupada said, is associate with non-devotees where required, but don't give them your heart. Okay? So you have to associate with them at your workplace and here and there, everywhere, but don't give them your heart. What does it mean to not give them your heart? It means that you don't engage in activities in which they take pleasure. Especially those activities that are not in accordance with Krishna conscious principles. Like going to the pub, going to the movies, or engaging in some mundane gossip and so on. Yes? So that is a spirit in which one should associate with non-devotees where it is required. Okay. Number 9. Similarly, whilst staying strong in your devotional principles, personally, deal with family, in-laws, neighbors, friends, etc. in a way that will increase their appreciation for Krishna consciousness. Just as you would deal with non-devotees outside in a certain way and set a good example, even in your family or the extended family, you can't avoid that company, so deal with them in a nice way. How many times we see that somebody becomes a devotee and then creates havoc at home. Yes? And doesn't take the other members of the family along, so it creates so much difficulty. So one must be understanding, one must follow for oneself, one must follow the principles, but one must be considerate and also see that the whole family is taken along. Yes, so one must set a good example. Number 10. Avoid distracting mundane entertainment offered through cinema, TV, internet and other means. Be careful that you are not overwhelmed with electronic gadgetry, communication devices and anti-social media. Use them judiciously as tools if you must. Do not become helpless tools in their hands. So another very important aspect of our lifestyle as devotees. Yes? Don't become slaves to electronic gadgets and technology. Make them tools in your hands rather than you becoming a tool in its hands. Use it with caution, use it in moderation, and use it especially for Krishna conscious purposes, or for purposes of your profession. If you have to use it, it's okay. But realize the balance. And especially avoid giving these things to your children when you want to keep them quiet and you feel you want to do something else. It's a very tempting thing to do. The children are playing around, making a noise. You just give them some very glittering or, visuals in that thing, and they keep looking at that 1 hour, 2 hours, and you're peaceful thinking, I'm peaceful. But you're creating such a bad habit for them. You're getting them addicted to this right at this age. So be very careful of this form of electronic gadgetry and all of that, the technology, computers, and of course mundane entertainment. You remember the example of the devotees going together to watch the movie, yes? Like that. Number 11. Take decisions, small or big, in life, depending on how your Krishna consciousness will be affected directly or indirectly. Consider the short-term and long-term implications of your decision. Accept whatever is favorable for Krishna consciousness and reject that which is unfavorable. This should be the ultimate criterion in decision making. Now in your life you will have so many decisions to make. Every single day, practically every moment, we are making decisions. Should I take 1 chapati more or not? Should I go to bed now or after 5 minutes? Should I drink water now or after 2 minutes? Every time you're taking decisions, you have to take decisions all the time, small, big, whatever. But remember, the ultimate deciding criterion is what is favorable for Krishna consciousness. So keep that in mind when you have big decisions. Consider the short-term consequences, long-term consequences, and weigh the things nicely. I suggest to devotees that whenever big decisions are to be made, put the pros and cons on a piece of paper, write it down, think about it, discuss with all the stakeholders, sleep over it, and then come to a decision. Don't take big decisions in a hurry, impulsively. Think with a cool head and then take a decision. And remember the implications on your Krishna conscious life. Number 12, purity or impurity of the source of your livelihood will also affect your life and consciousness. Hence, choose professions that have minimum possible material contamination and spiritual risk. Avoid professions in which there is a clear violation of the four regulative principles. For example, working for a company that produces or sells liquor. Do not involve yourself in overly risky money-earning ventures, being lured by the prospect of very quick and large profits. Avoid illegal business activities of any sort. Now, this is again a very important point. There are many things that affect the quality of our consciousness. And one of the most important things that affects that is the quality of our livelihood, the source of our livelihood. And even actually, there is a lot of discussion that happens amongst devotees on whether we should accept certain donations or not. I remember there was a big controversy that erupted amongst devotees several years ago, when the owner of a company that manufactured liquor came forward with an offer to give a large donation to the temple. And the temple needed the money, not here, it's another temple in India. And the temple had projects to do, there was need. At the same time, how can we accept money that is directly coming from a liquor manufacturing and selling company? And then some people said, well, we're offering to Krishna, so we're using the money for Krishna's service, so that karma is burnt up, we're not using it for ourselves. And this discussion went back and forth, and there were many issues. Finally, the temple decided not to accept the donation. And personally, I think that was the right decision. So, because even if you accept it for Krishna, there's ramifications. You're doing so many things. We eat that food as well. We eat the temple, we eat the prasadam, we do this. So what to speak if you're earning the money yourself and then you're eating food, your family members are eating food that has come because of your earning from a certain source. So purity of the source of livelihood is very important. So there are some times when devotees have professions that involve clearly some kind of participation in an act of violation of the four regulative principles, like serving liquor or serving meat or something like that. We should avoid those things as far as is possible. Try it. Of course, in this day and age in Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to find pure professions. Everything is tainted with some amount of sin or the other. Very hard to find completely pure professions and livelihoods. What to do? Do the best you can. But keep this principle in mind, the purity of the source of your livelihood. Next, 13. Spend wisely. Do not unnecessarily spend. By the way, before I come to that, yes, risky money ventures. I know of several devotees who, with all noble intentions, take very high risks in certain money earning ventures with the idea that they will get a lot of money and then serve Krishna full time. But they are not wise. they're not so perceptive. In immaturity, they get into some business dealings and so on, and they lose all their money. And now, instead of serving Krishna full time, they have to work another extra 5 or 10 years before they can do that. Before they can come to whatever level they were at now, then they will have to work another 5 or 10 years after that to come to that level, by which time anyway they'll become old enough to retire. So therefore, devotees must be very careful. We don't get into all these dubious financial things. If just because somebody offers us a very promising return, double in 1 month and this and that, I've seen several devotees succumbing to such temptations, so we should avoid this kind of thing. 13. Spend wisely. Do not unnecessarily spend on things that may not be really required. Live reasonably simply. Follow the principle of simple living, high thinking. Do not be tempted or attracted by or become envious of the wealth or position of others. Do not become a victim of the modern day consumerist culture with its emphasis on excessive consumption and flashy lifestyles. Prabhupada emphasized a lot on simple living, high thinking. How much is simple? That's the question. Yes? How simple is simple? Everyone has a different idea, isn't it? So, a simple answer that I can give is, whatever you have now is simple. As they say in India, bus. And whatever else comes, let it come of its own accord. Don't unnecessarily increase your requirements, your wants, and add anxiety to your life. Then you have to pay off the loans and you work harder to do that. It's very difficult. So try to lead a simple life, a reasonably simple life. Remember the principle, simple living, high thinking. Don't be attracted by all the glitter and glamour of the shops in Oxford Street. They are designed to entice your mind to buy something even if you never in your dreams wanted such a thing. You pass by or go into these shopping malls and you are assaulted, your consciousness is assaulted with a barrage of these different nice things, and you can't go away without buying something. More and more and more and more, and it's so tantalizing, it is so attractive. And you think, how did I ever live without this? And your life becomes more complicated. It becomes harder to remember Krishna because now you're too entangled in all these other things that you want. So don't fall a victim to this excessive consumerist culture. Lead as much a simple life as you possibly can. Be practical at the same time. Don't try to be artificially too renounced and then create trouble for yourself. Don't go to the other extreme also. Then, number 14. Save. The 13th point was spending wisely. The 14th point is save wisely for the future. Yet, take care to avoid a hoarding mentality. Balance. Save up money. Don't spend everything. Whatever you earn just the same day. At the same time, don't just accumulate. No. Strike the golden mean, the balance between the two. The other day I was narrating this little pastime of how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told one of his intimate associates, Shivananda Sen, you should take charge of the financial affairs of Vasudev Datta. He's such an exalted devotee, but somehow he doesn't have this worldly wisdom. So whatever money he earns, he spends it on the same day. How is he going to be able to look after his family if he does this? So you must teach him how to manage his money. Let him start saving up a little money. In this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also emphasized that when you earn money, you must learn to save as well. Spend wisely, save wisely also. And that's not enough. You spend wisely for yourself, yourself, you save wisely for yourself. There's a third component to your wealth, and that's very important. Don't close your ears now. 15. Give something in charity. In Krishna, ouch, I pained. Give something in charity in Krishna consciousness according to your means. Charity is recommended in the Shastras as one of the dharmas of a Grihastha. So wealth must be divided like this. For your legitimate expenditures, be wise. For your legitimate savings, be wise. And for charity, for Krishna conscious purposes. And be wise there too. Yes? So that's a very important part of our dharma. Giving in charity helps one who's earning money avoid the temptations of, shall we say, wanting to earn more and more and more. Also helps one avoid greed. Greed comes up very fast, but when you earn the money and you give that a portion of that to Krishna, the tendency to be greedy comes down also. And also one becomes purified from one's karma by giving to Krishna, because sometimes different types of karmas have to be performed to earn that money. So use it in Krishna's service nicely. Number 16. Know that your life is meant as a service to others in Krishna consciousness and not only for yourself and your family. Keep the spirit of sacrifice in your heart and keep away any feelings of selfishness. It's not just about you and your family. It's about the whole world. Yes, this is Vedic culture. This is real philosophy. This is the devotional spirit. So it is natural that we have our own home, we have our family, we have our money. We tend to get small-minded. We tend to think more in terms of me, my house, my money, my family. Yes, indeed, you must take care of your house and your family. You must do that. But also, you must develop a spirit of sacrifice for the rest of the world. So this also has to be ingrained into our psyche, into our mentality and our lifestyle. We have to live for others also, not just for ourselves and our family. Number 17. Preach the message of Krishna consciousness whenever you get the opportunity. Follow the advice that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to the Kurma Brahmana. Jari dakho tare kaho Krishna upadesh, which means speak the message of Krishna to whoever you meet. In this way, cultivate the missionary spirit. Preaching is not the exclusive preserve of brahmacharis and sannyasis. Grihasthas must also actively participate in it according to their situation. So yes, spread the good message of Krishna consciousness to anyone who is willing to listen to you. This is a very important part of our dharma. Whatever we are, sannyasis, grihasthas, whatever. As a sannyasi, I'm supposed to do more of that. Because I don't earn money, I don't have my personal assets. So I'm supposed to utilize the time that I save from job and family and all these things for spreading Krishna consciousness. But even for those of you who are in household life or earning money, a certain amount of your time should also be spent for helping the missionary cause of Krishna consciousness, of spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere. Number 18. Do not be unduly absorbed in household and material matters. Yet, do not be neglectful of your household and bona fide material duties. These must be performed with care, sensitivity, and responsibility. Again, balance. Do your household duties well, your family duties well. Take care of your family members. Do your business or job sincerely. Do everything that's responsible, that should be done by a responsible householder. But don't become too immersed in it. Don't become so absorbed in it. Don't become a grihamedhi. There's a difference between a grihastha and a grihamedhi according to the Srimad Bhagavatam. The grihastha is one who is situated at home and considers the home as an ashram, a place where one can surrender to Krishna. The grihastha's life centers around Krishna, even if he or she is involved in money-earning ventures and other things like that. A grihamedhi, on the other hand, is one whose consciousness is only in the material world. Me, my family, the world, how to increase material enjoyment, etc. So we must balance. We should try to become responsible householders, but not too attached. Number 19. Bring up your children in Krishna consciousness, never considering this task to be a burden. This is one of the most important services for a grihastha. Adjust other services according to the requirements of this service. For example, during pregnancy or when the child is very young, you may not be able to do many other services, but do not mind that. This service is also very pleasing to Krishna. When the time and opportunity are right, however, you may do these other services. Of course, the basic services of hearing and chanting must not be neglected at any time. And it is important to come to the temple for your own spiritual nourishment as well as that of the child. So this is for those of you who have children or are planning to have children. So this is the way in which you should look at this very holy task. One of the important duties of a grihastha is to bring forth into this world noble children, noble-minded children who can become Krishna conscious and be a great asset for the world. Yes? So don't consider this a burden. Do those responsibilities well and make sure that you give them the right values, the right culture, the right devotional training. Finally, point number 20. Practice, preserve and teach the principles of traditional and devotional family life. Faithfulness and lifelong commitment in marriage, a culture of respect for all including elders, sharing, caring, serving, cooking at home and so on. In this regard, understand well the pitfalls of accepting modern day social norms and practices like unrestricted mingling of men and women, eating out in karmi restaurants, living together before marriage, and so on. Of course, we are living now in an age that has many, many challenges. Those who want to live traditional lifestyles are unable to do so for reasons that are very compelling. Yes? So we must be understanding and sensitive and kind in situations where people or devotees are not able to follow standards of this sort. But at least the modern day kind of practices, living together outside of marriage and trying to eat out, which is food which is not prasadam, all of these things, unrestricted mingling, that's not very healthy for devotees. It's not good for our culture, not good for the consciousness. So where possible, we should try to understand the traditional principles of life, especially where connected to devotional service. So our whole life should be geared around these 20 principles, these 20 guidelines. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Did it make sense?
Yes.
Any question? Yes.
Thank you for a wonderful question. There's a lot of time which left. One question, I have one question. How to avoid insensitivity?
How to avoid insensitivity? Number one, by hearing about what it means to be insensitive and sensitive, by understanding what it means, practical examples of it, and understanding the need to not be insensitive once we've understood what it means. With this understanding, if we realize the practical necessity of doing it, then we will cease to be insensitive. Do unto others what you would have others do unto you, right? So if we don't want to be dealt with in an insensitive way, we should also not deal with others in an insensitive way, right? Okay, thank you. It's very late. I'm really sorry I have kept you up. It was insensitive coming late and keeping all of you up so late. And I said you should go to bed early. But anyway, as early as is possible in the circumstances. So thank you all very much. And Madan Mohan Govinda Prabhu, nice topic that you suggested. And I wish and pray that all the Bhakti Vrikshas go on nicely, they blossom and flourish nicely, and more people get connected, and when they become devotees, that they become very strong, nice, sincere devotees. And thank you to our host and hostess. Can we see them once again so we can thank them? Our host and hostess? Sorry? Outside, okay. Okay, thank you very much for hosting us today.